Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Roj joins us now. And Khalif, we're wading into international law here, but experts say this really involves the forceful deportation of the Palestinians.
Brian, let me say this. If these ideas or policies or proposals are realistic, they're troubling on a number of ways. I'll start with a couple things. First, because I think it would be unquestionably criminal, a violation of international law for the mass deportation. That's the first one. If you're talking about the you're talking about occupying a foreign sovereign country, that also would be against Geneva Convention. So that would be against international law. And then the last part is if you're talking about attempting to show aggression towards a foreign sovereign recognized country, that also is against a number of international laws. And so that on its face is troubling. But then the rhetoric, the comments are normalizing the violation of international law. And I think that's probably more troubling than anything. Even if it's just something that he was saying in jest, or if it was something that was saying jokingly. When you're joking about the violation of international law, where you're talking about moving 2+ million people from one location to another and making it in a capacity where these folks have already endured war for the last almost year and a half, that is problematic in itself. So if you remove the criminality from it, just the statements on its own, on its face, raise a number of concerns.
You talked about it is a violation of international law, but also we know from the past history with Trump that he likes to throw things out there to get attention. The Middle East has responded forcefully today on this, as we've seen, whether it is with a real idea going forward or maybe to satisfy with the Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu was in yesterday.
What I can tell you is that most of the folks that I've seen in response, specifically talking about Palestinians being removed, because sometimes the conversation gets muddied. If there is a war against Hamas, and that's an okay war what folks are agreeing on, the Palestinians are kind of being lost in the middle. And so the Palestinians are saying Gaza is part of where we were living before this incursion, before this war started. To even recommend removing us from our home country is laughable. A number of them have said it start international war just by attempting to do that. And so, as you mentioned before, I think this is something that President Trump does like to do. And I think those are types of comments that you can make here nationally, but when you're talking about internationally, those words do have action sometimes, and they have ramifications that could spark international trouble that could land us in international court.
Yeah, you're talking about nation building too. When you talk about Iraq and Afghanistan, the cost factor of something like that is tremendous, and also a lot of the Trump officials, they're walking back his outlandish claims today, specifically new Secretary of State Senator Marco Rubio.
I mean, Marco Rubio, he's put in a very precarious position because he on the one hand, he's praised for the Venezuela push that happened the other day, but now saying, look, this is something that we're talking about participating. This is momentary, assisting, saying all the right words, the things that you want to say. If we're supposed to make sure that democracy is ensured across the world and making sure that democracy is ensured in our country, but if we're going to do it and make sure that folks have access to it across the world, you do want us to be the leader in these things. And so what Rubio was saying does connect with what the old way of American thinking was doing. I think you had to make sure that folks can distance themselves. But I think your first statement is still the one that controls the argument, that the president will make statements that attempt to stick and see. Speaker Johnson supported it. We'll see how much traction this gets. Hopefully it doesn't get any, because it can lead to a larger problem.
Yeah, President Trump, always the developer first when he talks about that. All right, Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Roj, thanks.